Welcome to My Michelle Knit. In today's video, I want to get straight into this because that was not a pun. I don't really want to waste any time. We're going to talk about knitting needles, okay? When you go to the store, whether it's Michael's or Hobby Lobby or Walmart, you're going to go to the store and you're going to be really super confused. I don't have any yarn literally close to me. Actually, I do. So I will show you in a second. So you're going to go to the Hobby Lobby, you're going to go to the store, and you're going to be overwhelmed with all the different choices. But don't be scared, don't be confused, and don't get too distracted. Number one, don't get fuzzy yarn. That's a big, big no-no. You want to get yarn that is nice, clean, and simple and easy with no fuzz, no little loop-de-loops, no crazy fuzz, amount of fuzz, no crazy yarn. Don't get crazy yarn, get simple yarn, something simple. I don't care what size it is. It could be worsted, or it could be chunky or super chunky. I don't care, but go from there. Worsted, chunky, super chunky. Those are your beginner yarns. That's where you want to sit at all times. Beginner yarns. Worsted, chunky, super chunky. Don't do anything else. Don't do jumbo yarn. Don't do jumbo yarn. Don't do fuzzy yarn. Don't do crazy craft yarn. I wish I had some more examples like this. You know, don't do fuzzy yarn. I know it looks pretty and I know it looks tempting, but please don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. It's very difficult. This is not an easy hobby, so take it easy on yourself. Keep it simple, okay? So the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to take a look at your label. Now, every ball of yarn is going to come with a lovely little label that is going to give you this overwhelming amount of information all over the place. And you're just going to be like, what? I don't want to know. I don't want to know all of these things. I'm going to tell you real quick what you're going to do. Okay, we're a little bit overblown here, but there's nothing I can do. The lighting is crazy. So this is the first thing that I want you to look at. I want you to look at, find where it says millimeters and USA size, okay? Use 3.75 millimeter needles. It says knitting needles. I wish it would focus a little bit better, sorry. And then US size 5, okay? And then it also gives you instructions on what size crochet hook to use. US size 7. Millimeters because the rest of the world is on millimeters, and US has their own way of doing things. So that's why US. Now, you're going to go, most likely, if you're at a Michael's or something like that, you're going to go grab your non-fuzzy yarn, non-fuzzy, plain, simple, normal yarn, and you're going to grab the needles that it calls for. For worsted weight, 5 millimeter is not an unusual thing. Yeah, number 8. Actually, that's what I was using before when we did that first video anyhow. Now, you really don't want to get double pointed knitting needles for your first go around because there's not much room, okay? But it's okay if you do. You'll figure things out as you go. You really only need 2 knitting needles, like say for example these. What you don't want to do is get metal knitting needles because they're difficult to work with. If you're a beginner and you've never used metal knitting needles, even if your grandma taught you how, don't do that to yourself. Take it easy. Let's get rid of these. Put them away because they make a lot of noise and they're difficult to work with. Now, these are acrylic. These are, again, double pointed knitting needles. We'll get into why you need this many needles. This many, actually. I think there it is. I was missing that one. These are acrylic. I think I bought these at Hobby Lobby or Michael's, one of those. They're kind of cool. They're cheap. They're plastic. Um, you can use them as a beginner. It's okay. It's not going to kill you, but it is a little bit slippy. And if you're using acrylic yarn, it's actually a little bit sticky. It's probably going to be a little bit difficult for you to get those stitches through. But if you're having a really hard time keeping your stitches on your needles and you're using acrylic, maybe uh, maybe plastic needles will, or acrylic. These are acrylic needles. So if you're using acrylic yarn, if it's acrylic yarn and you have acrylic needles, these might be the ones that you want to use. They have needles that are attached to this big giant cable. You can get it. It's not going to kill you. It's not going to hurt you. You're not going to die. It's not going to be so confusing that you can't work with it. It's the same concept of using 2 knitting needles, just 2 knitting needles to do your work. Now, you just have 2 knitting needles. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't have to have anything attached to it. You just have 2 needles. However, since they're double pointed is really used so that you can work in the round. Since they're double pointed, your stitches are going to be falling off. So you want to get some wooden needles that have a little stopper in the back. This is only if you're not an adventurous person and you're scared of your stitches dropping off. And you know, I mean, really, you don't need a needle this size. This is huge, because you're not good. Are you going to knit a blanket? Because if you are, then you're going to want something with a cord, not this. If you're trying to do a blanket, it's just going to get so heavy and it's going to hurt your hands. I'm a weakling. I can't do it. I feel like you really need muscles to do that. So I stick to the small things. I actually learned to knit on double pointed knitting needles, which is exactly why I'm not recommending that you do that. So that's that. This is the one with the cord. They call it magic loop. This is also so that you can knit in the round, but you can knit a rectangle or a square or whatever you want. It doesn't make a difference. Basically, you just keep going. You just knit one side, turn around, knit the other side. Same concept as regular knitting needles, and there you go. These are all the different, like they obviously come in different sizes. These needles are not interchangeable. That means that they are fixed magic loop needles. They do not, the loop does not come off. The loop is called a cable. It doesn't come off, it is attached. And I prefer interchangeables. You're not going to work with those right now. You're going to stick to wooden needles if you know what's good for you. You're going to stick to something that is not a double pointed needle. If you do get double pointed needles, get them kind of long so that your work isn't constantly falling off. I bought this at Daiso a long time ago. Is it an eraser? It might be an eraser. It might be a chopstick holder. I don't know, but I use them as needle protectors. So you can get creative, you guys. You can get super creative. And this is what I love so much about knitting and crocheting. Okay, so I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. It wasn't a tutorial, but it was just showing you all the different needles. I hope that it was helpful. If you go to the store, I do recommend that you get the, I wasn't as in-depth about the yarn, the ball band, as I probably should be, but you know what? We can go into that in the next episode because it is a lot more involved. There is instructions there on how you can do your own knit swatch, your own gauge swatch. And that is so that you know how many stitches it takes to create a square that is 4 by 4 inches. Could be 4x4, could be 5x5. It's usually 4x4. But I'm going to teach you how to read that part next. I only want you to concentrate in the beginning on the US size needle or the millimeters, because that is what's going to give you your instructions on what size needle to purchase. So your yarn is going to call for a 5mm needle. You have a 5mm needle right here. Your yarn is going to call for a US 8 needle. The number 8 is right here. Don't get confused by the 7 inches. That's the length of this particular needle. Your ball band is not going to care what length your needle is. Okay, your ball band only cares about what the size is or what the number is, the US number. So these are very common needles to get as a beginner. Wooden, bamboo needles, highly recommend wood needles of any kind, usually without the kind of like slippy patina that is common with these types. This is a little bit slippy, but for example, this one, not quite as slippy. Still slippy, not as slippy. And that slip is what you really want to focus on when you're knitting your stitches, because if it's too slippy, it's going to be very difficult for you to keep those stitches on your needles. So wooden needles, the clover bamboos are just fine, or any other wooden needles that you find. If you have nothing else and you're diving through your grandma's stash and you have nothing but a bunch of aluminum metal knitting needles, don't be scared. Just do what you can. Take it slow. Keep your stitches kind of loose, but keep your tension nice and taut. That's super important. Get all those fingers working to manipulate those stitches and you'll be okay. It's not impossible, it's just a little bit difficult. But again, with a little determination and a little elbow grease, you can do it. I know you can. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode and I hope that you guys catch me on the next one. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye. The next thing is, oh, I don't have wood. I don't have metal. Stay away from, oh yeah, I just said metal. So stay away from metal. Just stay away from metal if you're at the beginning.